very early, I discovered that the reason why I'm being driven is because I actually wanted to leave a legacy. And that has been my mindset all through my entrepreneurial journey. And having that long term mindset has actually helped my vision to grow. There is probably a resilient pursuit for my vision, and it just keeps going. I'm getting older, but it's still going. So I believe that what is driving me is that leaving a legacy and hoping that, especially when we get to the part as what we're doing, I can be some kind of a role model to girls, especially young girls, to do exactly what they want to do.
So, good morning, everybody. Can I just actually say fabulous? A room full of young women, all looking, I don't even know, on a Saturday morning. I don't think I would have done this 25, 30 years ago. So, honestly, clap for yourselves. This is fabulous, just fabulous. Thank you for being here. And thank you for asking us to be here. It's a real privilege, to be honest, because as Mrs. Akinkugbe said, I think what drives a lot of us now is the opportunity to um, I don't like to use the word impact because I think, impact, you guys have shown up, shown up so well already. But to be able to give some advice, some support, some encouragement, as you travel through your journey, something that maybe we didn't have at that time of our lives. I think I'm quite lucky. I always say to my staff members that I don't know how many of you have read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwin. So if you haven't, you should, where it says there's nothing like luck. If you've done something for 10,000 hours, right, it becomes part and parcel of you. That's exactly what you're saying. And once you put in that 10,000 hours, you think, well, actually, this is an opportunity to leave this legacy for other people. I'm very fortunate. I grew up in a medical family. Both my parents were professors of medicine. So I feel that maybe that sort of vision, which I had from when I was about 4 years old, wanting to be a doctor, was one that was maybe easily given to me, although I'm one of four children and I'm the only one who did medicine in the end. Um, so maybe it's not that, I don't know. But I will say two things. And I think we were talking about it earlier on about our children and maybe now grandchildren. When I was at school, I didn't find getting my grades very easy, right? And I always like to share this because I think people always look at people who are successful and think, oh, they're extremely brilliant, I actually was sort of middle of my class. I was at Queen's College, but I never got more than, I was always sort of like the person who got in the 60s or 70s, came home, and my father used to look at me and think, excuse me, two of us are professors, you know? But I knew I wanted to do medicine. And I knew that I had to get the grades to do medicine. So when I got to the important exams of my life, I didn't sleep because I just knew I had to get those grades. So I think the message here is if you want to achieve something, and it doesn't mean sometimes you have to repeat the class, maybe you have to go back, whatever, but if you just continue and you focus, the resilience that you were talking about, you will get there. And then there's obviously the resilience in continuing. And for me, and I'm not going to spend too much time because there's a lot of time for us to talk, but starting a new career, age 58 and a half. So I'm going to be 60 next year and be running Marcel Ruth for 2.5 years and having to do those hours and work those hours at this stage of one's career. And sometimes I ask myself that question too, and actually was answered to me by a patient of mine not so long ago, who I showed around the hospital. And he looked at me and he said, "You came back from the UK to make this investment and to do this at this stage of your career." And he goes, "Ma, congratulations. You've reached your ikigai." I don't know if anybody knows what that means, because standing in the car park that day, I had no idea what he was talking about. But now know, and he was absolutely right. So your ikigai is when what you're doing professionally and what you believe in and are passionate about, and what you're earning from all come together. So it all converge. And actually, I have reached my ikigai, so I consider myself very blessed. So thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, actually. And today, for me, we're just going to be gisting, really. And I'm just going to share very freely about my experiences. And I'm sure it's going to be very different for a lot of people. So when you ask that question, I kept on thinking, why? Why do I do what I do now? So now I'm in the power space, and it was never planned because I'm not an engineer. I don't have a STEM background. I studied banking and finance University of Lagos, and I never worked in the bank for once, and I never did anything finance. So obviously, it wasn't planned. However, um, over time, I have come to understand the importance of purpose, and I think I even understand my purpose even more than ever before. And when I look back to my life and everything that has happened in terms of my career journey and the different experiences I've had, I realized that it was all preparing me for the purpose and what I'm doing. Um, so finding myself in the power space, like I said, was accidental. I got there because I work in an organization that I wanted to go into the power business. And my experience over the years I've worked in Sahara Group is I've been a transformation expert. And so, and I've always done difficult jobs, or jobs I'm not prepared for. But then I find out that I discover my capacity, and then I progress there. And then now that I'm in the power space, even though I was very nervous at the beginning, because I had imposter syndrome at some point in time, I realized more than ever before the reason why God wanted me to be there. Because there are a lot of women who, and even men, who doubt themselves, who think they can't do it. And me being in that space, I've been 3 years now as a CEO of this disco. We recently got an award for being the best distribution company. I think I'm a testament that it's possible. And I saw that drives me. And I'm sitting down here, I've come out here today to share that is for someone that it's possible. You just have to believe in yourself. You just have to try and understand, why am I here? And once you understand that, every single thing you do would help you fulfill that purpose. So I think that's really my own answer as to why I do what I do today.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I think first of all, I must really commend team that actually planned this entire event, and for everyone that turned up. It is really impressive. On a Saturday morning, it's not to be taken for granted. And I think when most of us were your age, we, for sure we would rather be in bed sleeping. So this is big. It's interesting as she said, legacy. I was thinking through it as well. And I think a lot of times when we say legacy, it always sounds so big and so long term, and if you start to own what legacy means from now and saying, what does it actually mean to me? For me, legacy means kindness. It means being kind to your peers. It means being kind to people that, are coming behind you. And it means being respectful to the people that have gone ahead of you. So when you understand that, it's what do people say about you? That is your legacy. What did you contribute in the lives of the people that you meet? That is your legacy. And how did you impact them? And how do you leave the door open for the people that are coming, behind? So as much as we're sitting down here today to talk about ourselves, for me, it's a blessing that we can even have the opportunity to be able to actually speak and also to learn from you as well. So why do I do what I do? I think, it's so interesting because for a lot of us, like in class, in school, in fact, if you were going to abuse anybody, you'd be like, Dupe, Olodo. And when we were in secondary school, my goodness, I was in a girls' school, QC as well. Listen, abuse was like the best thing. It was the quickest thing because our mouths were sharp. So, we're always like ready to just give the next girl. So I was playful in school. I mean, I just wanted to be social, laugh, go to junior leads, talk to boys and play. But, a lot of things we take for granted is that, in life, there's like, just like she said, a lot of things happen and you just keep learning from it. For me, despite the fact that I was playful, my driver at the time used to call me Margaret Thatcher because I just never, regardless of what it was, I was just intentional about, you said no to me. Why would you say no to me? No, I must, do better. That boy doesn't like me. Why doesn't he like me? I must, whether I'm going to say yes to you or not. But, it was just that thing of you just don't give up, whatever it is. And I think that prepared me for knowing that anything that I put my mind to, I could do. And, even when I had failure, I'll just learn to do it better. So, one of the things that for me is just about that spirit of wanting to learn, wanting to be better than I am, wanting to, and a lot of the times, it's just interesting listening to Folake because, of course, we all know each other, but we never really get the time to even listen to each other's story as well. And I had a job opportunity that when it was presented to me, I always talk about it. It was to be the CEO of an agribusiness subsidiary called Terrago. It was the first of its kind in Nigeria, and it's located in Makurdi in Benue State. I always tell people, I mean, today you say Lagos State, and people will fight with you and say, "What do you mean you don't own Lagos?" But I'm a Lagosian. And I always say I'm a Lagosian because every Christmas when people go out of town to wherever, Ogun State or the East or whatever, we never had anywhere to go. So predominantly Lagos was, unless you traveled abroad. I grew up in Lagos. And so having a job that I became the CEO and was based in Makurdi in Benue State meant that I had to travel 1 hour by plane to Abuja and then get in the car from the airport and go 4 hours by road to Makurdi. When the job opportunity came, I said, this is a joke. Clearly, they are trying to tell me it's my time to leave this organization, and they just don't know how to tell me. Because if they knew how to tell me, I have young children, you would never tell me to be CEO of a business in Makurdi because I'm a Lagosian. As in, jump on the plane. I can even deal with that as much as I hate local travel. Then I'm going to go 4 hours by road. Like, who are you? But for some reason, with encouragement, listen, take it, you'll be the CEO, you will have that to your title, blah, 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 all of it. I decided, okay, let me give it a try. And it tested me beyond what I even thought I was able to do. Because every single week I would get on the plane and go 4 hours by road to the north. And I would get there and just put in the time and put in everything that was required because, we're trying to make juice concentrates. If you drink pulp or any of those juices, it's the concentrate that goes into it. And my predecessor, a doctor, PhD, blah, 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 just was not able to get the product tested enough for us to sell to Coca-Cola, Chivita, and the like. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an agro person. But again, like for I was always through difficult challenges. And, somehow just the tenacity was what kind of just made me, pull through most of the time. And so, worked with the team on ground, did all that we had to do. And the product actually passed. We had to send it to France, etc. Coca-Cola is very thorough in terms of, but it passed. And we were able to start selling that product, that concentrate, for Coca-Cola, which was never done before, even in the history of Nigeria, because they always imported. What did I do different? And thank you. It starts from the mindset, just knowing and just believing that, it is possible. And that if I tried it this way, it didn't work. Another way, eventually until it works. So, it's not about the academics only. It's not about, what all the other things, what you always imagine. It starts with just one believing in yourself. That even when something says to you it is not possible, just challenging yourself to believe that yes, it is possible, and then you keep going, you keep moving, and that's it. Thank you.
So your question is setbacks, challenges, and how we overcome them. Okay, so hmm, I'm always my life is challenge. I work in a difficult sector. For those of you that know, we don't have 24-hour power. So the fact that I don't give 24-hour power is a challenge. It's a daily challenge, first of all. So just understand that daily I'm facing challenges. But what is my mindset or my attitude to challenges? I see challenges for me as an opportunity. Um, when Dupe was speaking about going to Makodi, oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, you couldn't hear me before. Okay. When Dupe was talking about going to Makodi, that was a challenge, right? But at the end of the story, you heard that, I mean, it was an opportunity, and that obviously boosted her confidence. So that's his mindset towards challenges that I face. And I faced different challenges. I can talk about COVID. So when I became the CEO of Ikeja Electric, um, I became the CEO at the time when COVID just happened, which meant that I had to manage a multi generational team. So I have a different set of, the people who are old school that work, who are used to be NEPA staff, but they're very experienced. They're engineers. I have millennials. I have Gen Zs. I have all sorts of people that are techie savvy, people that are not techie savvy, people that couldn't even adjust to this working from home. That was a major challenge. And power was critical at that time because everybody was going to be at home. So there's pressure on us to ensure that we continue to provide power. And what that meant is if we're providing power, because people can't really go out or move, we can't really collect money from people. So, how do I continue to provide power? Also, ensure I motivate the team to be able to do their work and embrace technology. That's a major challenge. Um, but it's a team and everybody has different strengths. So what we quickly did, or what I quickly realized, was how do I leverage on the different strengths of the team members? And it was them that came up with the different solutions that we definitely implemented during that COVID period. And so, what did that whole experience teach me? What it taught me was that there's nothing that is impossible. We just have to think about what are the best ways, what are the different ways we can get out of this challenge. So, anytime I have a problem or anytime anything faces me, the first thing is that, okay, if we do something and it doesn't work out, which is failure, all right, what did we do wrong there? What can we do better? What did we learn from it? How can we ensure we execute differently? And that's pretty much how I face challenges. Any challenge, whether it's personal, whether it's career, making a decision, talk to other people about it. What's the worst that will happen? You're not going to die. I always talk about this public speaking thing. Now I do it in my sleep. But when I first started as a CEO, it was something I had to do and I was very uncomfortable about it. And I said to myself, if I'm going to be successful as a CEO, I have to be able to speak publicly. So I'm not going to run away from it. But then back to what I said about purpose. I'm not speaking because I want to speak. I'm speaking because it's important that someone hears my story. So if I hide behind or being afraid of facing that difficulty or that challenge, then you're not going to fulfill purpose. So goes back to what Modupe said about mindset. I don't know if that helps. Thank you.
It does. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring next question to Mrs. Can you put what the leader possess? I think it's breaking up. Can you guys hear? Can you please talk us through what qualities you think a leader should possess and how and how you cultivate those qualities in yourself? Yeah.
Okay. First of all, let me sort of give you a little bit of background on what I do and the sort of leadership skills that I had to build in myself. Um, as you know, I'm a pioneer, and I pioneered a whole industry that didn't even exist.
Hello, hello. I think maybe this is better. Hold on.
Skills that I had that I had no choice but to have. Um, Nigeria about 17, 18 years ago, when you all were still, was naturally very, I mean, it's still a cash-based economy. And at the time, the banks and the central bank wanted to move from cash to using electronic means of payments. In doing that, my first company, which was an engineering and biometric technology company, had grown to a certain stage that I got recognized to be a part of some association to come up with ways on how to move Nigeria from a cash-based society to an electronic where you can make payments using your cards, using your mobile phone, you did like you now do, and so on. So at that time, we didn't really have cards like we now have. And even at that time, we didn't really have mobile phones like we now have. So when we were trying to look for ways to, and there were many reasons why they wanted to include a lot of people financially into the formal sector. So there are a lot of people that were hiding their cash under the mattress. So they weren't part of the banking sector. So it was necessary to move that because even the banking system would reduce the operating costs. In those days, we used to have bullion vans. I don't know if anybody remembers taking cash, but now we don't have it, you know. And so at that point in time, we felt that, and even the few cards that were there were based on old technology. It was using magnetic stripe technology. Magnetic stripe technology, you can easily clone it. And that's why at that time Nigeria had a bad reputation for 419. And that was where 419 all started and so on. And if the banks had to get their customers' cards, they would have to wait for 3 to 6 months because somebody has to travel, get the card from a bank, personalize it there, and then bring it back, and then they give it to the customer. Now, I looked at it and I said, wait a minute. We're running on old technology, magnetic stripe. The developed world had moved to chip and pin, where it makes cloning less. That's one. Two, there wasn't any card manufacturing company in Nigeria with a population of almost 200 million or 180 million at the time. Three, no smart card manufacturing company in the entire sub-Sahara Africa. You know, everything was being imported from Europe, from Asia, and so on. And when I saw that white space, I, in some way, had the courage to say, why don't we build a smart card manufacturing plant here in Nigeria? And everybody thought that was the most ridiculous thing to say. One, Nigeria does not even give you the ease of doing business. I mean, it's not there. There are power issues. Even the equipments and the machines that I wanted to buy, which I'm talking about, maybe a single machine is millions of euros, where you think that an equipment supplier should be happy to sell to you. They will tell you, you can't use this. That machine can't survive in that environment because it needs humidity, a certain type of temperature. It needs a certain type of water purity. It needs all sorts to be able to do it. The raw materials you have to get for the cards can't survive in this sort of environment. Now, and I would then come to leadership. In all of this, I saw this as opportunities. Like someone said, problems are opportunities. And it was a whole white space that my vision, or the vision God gave me, pioneered. So it was like pioneering an entire different industry that did not even exist at the time. And also, there was no one to benchmark. Because at least when you're starting something, I want to be like, So around Africa, there was no one to benchmark. And so I had no choice but to benchmark against the global best. And they were situated somewhere in France. Now, what leadership skill did I have to deploy to do that? That was courage. Courage, not being afraid. All right. And I don't want to sort of take so long because I'm sure everybody else has a story to tell. But in doing something like that, doing something that has never been done before, and ensuring that it succeeds, that you need to show leadership. One, you have to employ people that don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't even know what I was talking about because it's a different industry, So how do you bring people in, and how do you become that global best company? I know that when I had the vision, it wasn't just for Nigeria. I said, look, I don't want to supply just Nigeria, but to supply the entire Africa. And the leadership skills that I had to deploy was one of resilience, was one of boldness, was one of not looking at impossibilities. I don't look at impossibilities. And one of looking at the market not as it is, but as it can be or as it should be. And it is what has driven me, all along the journey. And bringing people in, of course, at first, 10% of our staff were expatriates because they had to train the Nigerians. Okay. But starting with only one staff, I took one staff from my old company, and today we're about 500, to say, look, let's start this. We started with, thank you, we started with Nigerian market, and today we're exporting to 21 different countries across Africa. But that leadership skill was one of facing issues brutally. Because were there challenges? I mean, of course there were challenges. Like someone said, it's not an easy journey. We all look nice and beautiful here. I mean, can you imagine driving to Makurdi? I wouldn't even look at Dupe and say she can do that. I mean, she looks like one that is not even touched at all. So I mean, so what you see is, so facing issues brutally, taking decisions. As a leader, you have to take decisions. And decisions are not easy to take. Men can get up and take a decision. Women have to wait. How do I do it? How do I do it? And that's why most times when they have an idea or a vision, they sometimes fail to execute it all the way because they meet challenges along the way and then they give up. And they are so scared to dream big. It's very, so leaders need to take decisions, all right? And the decision is such that if you fail, you go back and say, what have I done wrong? Can I learn from this and start again? But a leader must be focused on the end goal. Where am I going? At every point in time, I'm obviously, most of us are in a male-dominated industry. I usually would find myself the only woman in the room. It's something, and I'm extremely used to, you know. But it's something I've also used as an advantage because most of the time you're underrated and most of the time they don't see you coming, you know. So it's something I've used and I think most women can use as an advantage. But having that pioneering spirit, you know, because even after the cards, we went on to transport. After transport, we went on to digital. Okay. And that is because a leader must be one that is always thinking, how can I do things better? A leader must be one that aligns people to your vision, you know, because you can't carry out that vision on your own. The first experience I had was having built the team and doing something that didn't exist. How do I align the people to that vision such that they have ownership of it? And that's what a leader should do as well, you know. And, you know, so many things that the leader should do. You must keep pioneering, keep asking yourself, how can I do this better? Keep, in fact, disrupting yourself. All right? Keep disrupting yourself. And talking about leadership, when I had senior executives at the point when I could then afford to have senior executives like chief financial officers, chief this and chief that, you know, and especially if they are male, it's sometimes very difficult to boss them. It's sometimes very difficult to boss people that are even better than you know. And I realized that as a leader, not that you should be unemotional, but you should stick to the facts, you know. And literally, I would say to my senior people, look, okay, these are the KPIs. These are where I think you've come short. Just tell me how you're going to close that gap, you know, so strict. But a leader is someone that definitely creates that environment for those behind you to follow. And I think that is what has helped me along the way. Thank you. Sorry to have taken.
Very much. Very insightful.
Okay. People hear us behind.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So my question to her
Yeah.
was, how do you ensure that you're constantly learning and growing in your field? And what steps do you take to stay ahead of industry trends?
Okay. So that is an extremely good question. I think I'm going to sort of leverage on some of the things that Akinkugbe has Kofo has said. So actually, I've never said this before, but I now think that I'm a pioneer in my field. you know, I'm now beginning to realize actually, and I think that, I've spent the last 30, 40 years in the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, and actually achieved, I don't know, so much more than I ever thought that I was going to achieve. So one of the things I want to just pause and say here is that, those of us sitting here, we're talking about 30, 40 years of experience. So please don't be disillusioned and don't think, oh, why am I not already understanding what my purpose is? Why am I not already understanding, doing it afraid? Why am I, we bring with us to that table of actually becoming comfortable in ourselves to making some of these next big steps. Years of, falling down, years of being confused, years of not understanding, years of sometimes tears, and so on. So please don't be discouraged at all. Because, for example, for me, with the Marcel Ruth story in particular, this is like, the last maybe 10 years of my life, but Marcel Ruth as a hospital has been operational now for 2.5 years. And bringing with me the 30, 40 years of working in the NHS, becoming a consultant in 2 different teaching hospitals, being asked by the Department of Health to set up a service that had never been set up before. Me, Queen's College, Medilag student, right, in the UK, being asked by the Department of Health to come and set up a brand new service. People used to look at me and say, which medical school did you go to in the UK? You know, people make all sorts of assumptions about you, and that's why you're where you are. But bringing that to Lagos, having this vision of wanting to set up a cancer hospital. I'm an oncologist by training. In a system where healthcare is almost something that nobody really pays attention to anymore. Like it was when we were thinking of doing this, and we were trying to benchmark, as Kofo just said, what's happening in in the country. Actually, what was happening was that people were getting on a plane to go to India, to go to South Africa, to go to UK, to the US, spending money that actually they had to sell their property. I'm serious, for cancer care. People had to sell all their things. Their families would sell things, especially if you want to go to the UK or the US. That was our benchmark. What were the statistics of cancer patients? Who are we going to be looking after? No data. Who are the skilled people? Nothing, no data. And the one thing I will tell you is here, people will look at you and say, you want to do this in Nigeria? Are you sure? Don't you love it? You know, people say, are you sure? They don't say, don't do it, but you know. But I know when I look now, there's something about God going before you. Purpose, you want to call it, you know, that where you're just doing it afraid. You have to be afraid, actually, to be successful. That's honestly, you have to be afraid. You have to wake up in the morning and think, if I don't do this, if I don't improve myself, if I don't find out how to get to that next level, you won't get there. It's about doing it afraid. So we came into the market, no data. No one had really done it. And we brought a linear accelerator machine, it's a radiotherapy machine, in the private sector into Nigeria. There's supposed to be one of these machines for 100,000 of a population. We have a population of almost 200 million. Nigeria has 10 machines for the whole country. And that includes 2 in the private sector. But we brought the best, the state-of-the-art one, where if you had cancer and you were being looked after at the Royal Marsden or the Mayo Clinic, this is the machine that you'll be treated on. And not just that machine, but all the other top-of-the-range CT scans, mammo. People come to the hospital and say, oh my gosh, I had my last 3 mammos in the US. Your machine is better than them. And I will thank GE, Folake is sitting in the front. She's the head of for Sub-Saharan Africa. They held our hands, they worked with us. So, but you know, just 2 individuals, my husband and myself, you know, doing this. But because, you know, if you have a vision and you realize that you know something, and my mantra is, I mean, I have a few, but one is, why would a Nigerian patient who has just been diagnosed with cancer, who actually needs, the most they need is to be at home, family and their friends, supporting them through this journey. Why at that time are they going to have to get on a plane and go to India for the next 9 months or 1 year? And one thing about cancer treatment is it takes a long time. And then they're going to end up in one accommodation that they've rented with the one member of family that has followed them. They're going to have to stop work. The family member who follows them is going to have to stop work. With women with breast cancer, they're going to have to leave their children at home and then have to face all the anxieties, all the stress of having this treatment. Why is it okay? Why mustn't we provide the best care for Nigerians in Nigeria? And that's basically where this came from. And I'm now pleased to say, so we're 2.5 years in practice. We've seen almost 2,000 cancer patients. We've looked after almost 400 breast cancer patients. And one thing I'm so grateful every single day, because now I see my patients, some of them, you never know if it's the patient or the relative, because you know, Nigerians were always so beautifully dressed and whatever, walking into the hospital. And some of the women who are so anxious, so worried, right? And their relatives coming and, you know, they're always praying for us. And the word round always takes so long because patients are always praying, which is fantastic. You know, you understand, it's not just about the medical treatment. And of course, we're doing it to international standards and hiring the skill sets and the staff and training, because the one thing you have to do is you have to train. yourself, because it doesn't really exist to that level. And also, never letting anybody else reduce your standard. Yes, Nigeria is a harsh place to work in. That's one thing I will tell you, being back 3-4 years. Nigeria is a harsh environment to be in. No one is there to hold you and support you and say this is okay. You have to build that network yourself. You have to continue to understand that this is why you're doing what you're doing. And you must never, ever let anybody else tell you that it's not possible. And therefore, just reduce your standards a little bit, because actually, that's how it's done here. That's what I was being told all the time. And what I say to my staff, some of whom are here, our mantra is from the gate. From the gate. And it's incredible now, the testimonials that I receive. People say, when we arrived at your hospital, somebody told my driver that he has to slow down to 20 whatever per hour, and he mustn't use his horn because we're looking after cancer patients or, sick patients here. Every time I come to your hospital, by the time we're about to get off the car, there's the security man helping us with the wheelchair. We don't even have to ask. They just appear. None of the patients open the front door by themselves. The care begins from the gate. But when we train our staff, including the security staff, when we're doing basic life support training, I'll never forget. And I said, no, we have to include the security. We have to include the housekeeping staff. We have to, and then the guy who came to do the training said, but Ma, it's going to cost you money for every single person you're training. And I said, well, if you came or your relative came and they collapsed at the gate and the security man didn't understand what to do, he said, I understand. It's just I've never seen it before. So you have to, your standards and where you're going to. And I think that's what is resonating here, whether for us who are entrepreneurial on this side or for people who are, really high level in an organization. For all of you, all you really need is, to be honest, at this stage of your lives, passion. Passion is that passion that's going to get you out of bed. The hours I've worked in the last 2 years, and like I said, I'm about to be 60, and my only regret sometimes is I need to spend more time with my granddaughter, is that is what is going to get you out of bed. At 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, when you have to do what you're doing. When I started in November 2020, there were 5 people and myself. For about the first 6 months, I would be in the kitchen sometimes with my apron before I saw a patient in the morning with the contractor and so on and so forth. Here we are 2.5 years later. We've got, almost 100 or more staff and looking after all that. So passion and the teaching, you will learn on the job. You'll realize the things that you need to know. You will disrupt. You will have to disrupt yourself. I had to disrupt myself. You have to be the cook, the cleaner, the whatever. And so on, and of course learning, and we've been very lucky. We have something called a tumor board, where we have other Nigerian specialists from all over the world who join us every Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. looking at every single new patient that we're looking after that week, so that we make sure that we're working to international standards. And I'm going to stop here, except I'm also going to say, I think there was a question you asked about the issues and the demands that we look at. Let's not all forget in this room, sorry, we're women. You also have to be married, for those who want to get married. You have to have children. You have to carry your husbands along. So I'm going to not say too much about it, just say, but let us not forget, right? Careers are fantastic and they're great, but the totality of our lives includes the fact that we're women. And we have the opportunity to do so many things in brilliant ways. And, also that part of our lives, we've also got to be intentional about that part of our lives too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? So I think you presented actually.
My daughter's in the audience, so I'm not sure. I can't lie. It's never really balanced is the true answer to the question. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are more super women. It's never really balanced. One thing I wish somebody had told me many years ago, don't put yourself under too much pressure, right? You cannot, we're the same one person. Yes, we have to work. I mean, one of the things I will say though, is you have to work. you have to put the hours in every single aspect of those parts. I mean, you have to, you can't, it's never going to just happen. That's for sure. But where you fall down, where the times when it doesn't work, when I look back, I think, why did I beat myself up so much? I mean, also, take time to pat yourselves on the back. Honestly, like this, even today, I'm serious. The fact that you all showed up and you're all showing up beautifully because you want to do better, know better, learn better. That in itself is fabulous. All right. So don't beat yourselves up too much. Things will always last life. Some things will be great. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years of trying to set up my cell, Ruth, I'm not sure that my children really saw me, or even heard from me or could get hold of me on the phone. But the thing is, if you carry everybody along, I'll have my youngest daughter saying to me, Mom, I know it's okay. You're really, really busy. I mean, but then the other side, you've fallen down when your youngest child is saying, no, I dropped French and something the other day. I'm sure I told you, because she knows that you are not in that space, right? So she basically gets away with the things that the older ones maybe couldn't have gotten away with. There will be times when you fail. Failure comes with the story. It's what you do about it that matters. Do you sit down and say, well, okay, I've offended my husband. He hasn't seen me for how many days? He's really up, you know what I mean? Or this is not working or whatever, or even at work. It's how you pick yourself up. It's resilience. It's how, and also knowing that you cannot achieve everything in every aspect of your life all the time. And somebody once said to me as well, it's about building your tribe. Building that group of either friends or work, who understand you, who you are, what you're trying to achieve, where you want to get to. Because there will be times when you need somebody to speak to say, look, this is really rubbish. And you need somebody who is going to remind you of who you are and why you're trying to do what you're doing, and why it's important that you look forward all the time, sometimes irrespective of how tough it can be, but also remembering what your aim is and your goal is, which for a lot of us now at this point of our lives is that wanting to leave that legacy. And for me, wanting to ensure that I leave the healthcare sector in Nigeria 1,000 times better than I met it. And that also we can provide. And honestly, we now have patients come to us from Liberia, from other parts of West Africa. Yes, because there is no, thank you, there is no comprehensive cancer center, between here and Kenya, where you can have every aspect of your care. So all our cancer patients, breast cancer, for example, the surgery is done at Marcel Ruth, the chemotherapy is done at, your radiotherapy is done at Marcel Ruth. Like I said, there are only 10 machines in the whole country. So people have to go here for this, here for that, and whatever. So, it's living it better than you met it. But, as you're growing, just remember that actually you will get there. And there will be times when it'll all be working, and there'll be times when some of it is off kilter. Just keep going. Keep going. Have the faith in you as a person and your vision, and you will get there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think she's actually literally said it all. And as she was talking, I was just remembering, I think I was in my 20s when I had my first child, and I was working in either private equity or asset management or something. And my mother in law came to stay, and I would be at work. I would work so hard, and then I'll be rushing home that she must not give my child a bath before I get there, because this was a bonding, I had to be the one to put my daughter on my laps and wash her and do everything. And then I look back now and I'm laughing because I'm thinking, what did that really mean? What did it mean? But, it's that thing of trying to be perfect at everything, trying to go to the office, work, trying to come back home and still be a great mother. Oh, I've had my first child. I'm the only one that breastfed. I'm the only one that, all of those things. But understanding that you don't have to be perfect at everything. You actually free yourself. You release yourself, knowing that, actually it's okay to just be good at some things. And that even good is good enough sometimes. And that's actually all you need. That there's no balance. Honestly, it doesn't exist. Because at every point in time, you're giving up on something to be, to let the others go. Even till date, I have sometimes my friends are like, you're just not being there. You're not nurturing our friendship. You're not spending time. And you just have to understand that it's the phase that you're in at every point in time. And there are times when, we're all talking about work right now, and that may take 90% of your time. But I've also had times in my life that I'm like, you know what? Actually, I'm done with it. What do you want to do? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? Actually, I'm not working again. And I took time out. What did I do? I got up, I went to Alliance Francaise, I did French for a few months. I got up, I went to London, I went to Paris. I wasn't doing anything. But I needed time for me. And it was okay. In fact, at some point, I didn't have money in my account and I wasn't working. And I was like, Alliance Francaise is 30,000 naira a month. I was like, I can't afford that, But today, I'm working. Today, all those things are not as important. So it's knowing what is important to you at every point in time, not what is important to the next person, but what is important to you, your own passion, your own desires. What is it that you want to do? You want to cook, you want to, whatever it is, make that decision and then be intentional about it. And also learn to ask for help. And I think that's what a lot of us forget, that in striving to be perfect at everything, you forget that actually you can ask for help. And ask for help is sometimes, if you're a young parent, for instance, calling on your sister, your mom, whoever it is, to attend to things on your behalf. And then putting the time in at work. And even at work, I think sometimes we're also, when you work with other people, in a hurry to prove yourself, in a hurry to say, you know what, I want my own name at the bottom. Who did this work? Who signed it? Who did it from scratch to, from beginning to end? But understanding that it doesn't always have to be like that, that you can actually call on your colleagues and other people to ask for help. And when Folake was talking as well, I remember, honestly, if anyone asked me to come and speak at any event, my answer was always no. I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't. Because I didn't feel that I had the confidence enough. I was like, oh, public speaking, I'd rather talk one on one. I don't want to speak publicly, blah, blah, blah. But I had to say to myself that um, there's no one that goes on stage that hasn't second guessed themselves, particularly women. If I ask these women filled in this room looking beautiful, everything, and I'll say, okay, who wants to do, or who feels that they are ready for the next position, you would find that more than likely the men would be the ones to very first, whether the skill set, the background, the experience or not, they would be the first in the room to say that they can do it. The women that can do it would very quickly be analyzing in their minds, how is it going to sound if I say yes? Are people going to think I'm overconfident? Are they going to think I'm skilled enough? Are they going to think, oh, I should have said this? We're constantly second guessing ourselves. So at some point, I had to say to myself, you know what? Whether I am ready, whether I am good enough, whether I have the experience or not, I will say yes. I will say that, yes, I can do it. And then I will step back and go and prepare myself to make sure that when I get to the table or when I get to the hall, I will find that I'm good enough. Some speaking, in fact, my younger sister, she would laugh because some speaking engagements, I would say, I'm coming to your house. I need to practice. I need to prep. Okay, so how does this? Oh, I'm saying too much. Oh, I'm saying, and you're like, you know what? Actually, it doesn't matter. Get there, prepare, plan. Don't take it for granted. Prepare, plan ahead, and then when you get there, give it your best. And even if it's not good enough, you take the lessons, you go back and learn to do better. And I think that is, if you find that our stories, they may sound different, but actually they are the same in a lot of ways. And it was just because we put ourselves out there. We were not scared to dream. and we were not scared to take the first step. And I think that is really at the essence of it. Whether you want to be a chef, whether you want to be a professional dancer, an accountant, and whatever it is, the fundamentals remain the same. It is not being scared of that no, not being scared to put in the time, the effort, not being scared to believe in yourself, and not being scared to actually throw yourself out there to say that you can do it, and then doing it. And I think that's really it, and that's what makes the difference. Thank you.
So what has been the greatest hurdle? In generally, I mean, now I would say it's it's probably not a hurdle for me any longer. Um, but it didn't start that way. Um, as I always say that I overcame my greatest fear when I decided to do mathematics in university, and the professor looked at me and said, "You." And I decided that I was going to prove him wrong. It wasn't even about getting good results, it was just about proving him wrong. And there were only about 2 women in class out of a class of so many. And well, was there fear all along? Yes, there was. But at the end of the day, ended up getting the best result and so on. But the meat of all of that is that I overcame something. And all through my journey, I've always found myself being in a male dominated sector. Even when I started my first company, which is engineering in biometric technology, it didn't exist at that time, But from the initial fear that I overcame, I I now became very comfortable with being in that male sector because I had seen success in it. One thing is that once you have attained success, it's the beginning of another journey for success. So I wouldn't say it's a hurdle anymore. It's almost like whatever it is, just bring it on. We will do it because you've achieved some level of success. So it continues. Now, the next question is, how do I pave the way for gender in my industry? So there are 2 industries that I operate in. One is manufacturing and the other one is fintech. For manufacturing, one thing is that I would like to see more women come in. That's for sure. My best maintenance engineer is a woman. And, I was very, very, very impressed when we had a vacancy in maintenance and she said she wanted to do it and she ended up being a woman. So I would like to see more women operating machines. I would like to see more women heading manufacturing companies as well. And hopefully with good stories that they hear, that will give them the confidence to do it. The manufacturing sector has a lot of challenges, a lot of challenges. So whether you're talking about power, or you're talking about supply chain, or you're talking about skills and so many things, there are just too many issues, And against all odds, we've had to do what we're doing because most of the time when we're trying to get jobs, you're competing with companies from Germany and that don't even have the same issues as you. Their cost of production is a lot lower than yours because you're not spending money on diesel or spending money on power. Maybe after this, I would sit down with Folake and we'll talk and she will help me as a woman, woman to woman, to read. Yeah, to reduce the cost, or just generally doing business in Nigeria. You're bringing in things. It's almost like it's a crime to be successful in Nigeria. You can't. You are dealing with customs. You're dealing with policies flipping here and there, and so on. So I would like to see some stability in the manufacturing sector as well. I think if we can deal with power, we've dealt with so many things. If we can deal with transportation infrastructure, we've dealt with so many things. So I would like to see those changes. But as it relates to women and gender equity, I would like to see more women, so younger women that come to me and say they want to go into manufacturing, I'm always ready to help them, because it's not a space that you find a lot of women in. I mean, when I started, I was always in the factory, and I never had all these speaking engagements. I don't even have time for it. And I don't even know how they can't find me, you know. And I remember the first person that found me was a South African lady or an English lady that was doing something in South Africa and saying I should come and speak. And I asked her, I said, how did you find me? Because, first of all, the factory is such that you can't even take your phones in. So you're not even on any kind of media or whatever. It's like a total vault. There are no windows. There's nothing. We don't have any signs outside, So, and in manufacturing as well, I mean, you all have cards in your pockets and so on, but you need to know what it takes to create and produce either a MasterCard or a Visa card. There are probably about 300 companies all over the world that are certified to do MasterCard and Visa. And there are certain rules. We live by rules. We have to comply by rules. That long number must be somewhere. That expiry date must be between this and this, 8 millimeters, 2 millimeters. So there is a lot that goes into it that there isn't. A lot of women are not geared to that kind of, and even men, I mean, a lot of men especially are not geared to that kind of patiently trying to execute. It's one thing to have a passion, but it's another thing to execute that passion. And that's why I always say that is the graveyard of a lot of CEOs. You can dream, but then to execute it to the end can be, because everybody dreams. But how do you then execute, and how do you then scale? And after you've scaled, how do you then remain there? So these are all the things that put a lot of pressure on you. So on the technology space, what I would like to see is already happening. I think Nigerians are very innovative. In manufacturing, we have this rule with my HR that when we look at the funnel, looking at the structure, we must have a certain percentage of women at every level. I've struggled to have it in manufacturing, but I'm not giving up, whereby we have women not just doing quality control, because that's where you find most of them always doing quality. They can check quality because they are very, very patient, but I need them to do other things as well, So in technology, when we disrupted ourselves and went into tech, digital solutions, we found out that it was easier to get women into it. So basically, tech, I think we're doing very well. I think the women are participating. I don't think they have that initial fear, except I'm wrong, But what I would like to see them do is to scale their business beyond just being an SME. Because when they talk about SMEs, 60% of SMEs are they're run by women. We need to see large corporates being owned by women. How do you scale your technology solutions or whatever you're doing to be a large corporate? So those are the things I would like to see.
My question is, how can we support and empower women who are at the beginning of their careers? What resources and opportunities can they seek out, generally, but also in the power sector?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. So, first of all, I think because it's power and it's male dominated, women are not even attracted to it. Just like you said, like Mr. Akinkugbe spoke about the manufacturing sector. But one of the things, at least I drive or I'm channeling, is I'm joining organizations. I'm working with organizations to create the awareness. So I think the awareness is the first thing. So I'm part of the board of Women in Energy Network, and cover both upstream, downstream, power space. We recently had a function even yesterday. And the essence of these sort of organizations is to create the awareness, to also work with stakeholders in the sector. We're also trying to ensure that we start early. So we're going to schools, we're collaborating with schools to also begin to open girls' minds to STEM. Because a lot of girls run away from STEM. So at least if you're in that space, then you can explore the option of going into manufacturing. One of the things I also do, like I said, is I encourage, even in my organization, we have a policy that shows that there must be female representation at all levels. That is something that I drive deliberately now, not just for the sake of putting women in positions, right? But we are encouraging and showcasing the HR knows when we're recruiting, when we're looking at internal vacancies, check women that even didn't apply. But if you look at their appraisal, that they're much better. I look at applications and I look at the men apply, like Dupe said, their scores are so we're deliberate about going after them and sending them, asking them to actually apply for those openings. We're also coming up with mentoring programs where we are being deliberate about mentoring women who, have the opportunity or who have the capacity to be able to work in this power space. It's something I'm very passionate about. And like I said, because I don't have STEM background and I'm able to at least effectively work with people that have the STEM background and deliver results, that in itself is an encouragement. So any opportunity I get, like the one I have now, I call out to women. I think it's up to us women as well. So there's so much we can do, but you also have to see the opportunities. I think there's one person that I've always admired Mrs. Akinkugbe because honestly, what she's doing, at the time she started it as a woman, and she's even lucky. I think she has the technical capabilities, but it is still something that, we need to honestly clap for her that she actually went and did. So listening to us and listening to her here, it's actually a call out to us women that we can do anything. I know there's stereotypes, there's discrimination, but just know that you can do it. I think that is one thing I also want to encourage. And we also would continue to support organizations that will empower women to make this happen. So those are some of the things that I'm doing personally, my organization is doing personally. And I'm hoping that I don't know if you have those in your organizations, whereby we are all very deliberate about giving that opportunity for women. And push them. If you don't push them, they're not going to also do it. So that's it from me.
Thank you very much. I've personally been very inspired by this panel, and I thank you all for sharing so openly with us. We're going to open up the floor for questions and answers from the audience. So if anybody has a question, you can put your hand up and the microphone will come to you.
Sorry, whilst before you get the microphones, can I just say on behalf of everybody, thank you to the people who put this together this morning. I think we really need to give a big round of applause to them. Honestly, sitting here, I was thinking to myself, if I had had this opportunity, 20, 30 years ago, and to feel encouraged and to feel supported and to have somebody or people who could answer my questions or just lift me up, my goodness, my journey would have been so much easier. So honestly, to Future Leaders Network, to those, who are trying their best, even at your stage, right? It's not like you're on this side of the panel and doing this. As you're coming along, you're already supporting your peer group and everything. I think that's huge. Thank you.
Um, hmm. Now, first of all, why not? Is this only meant for Dangote? Okay, great. So, I think courage, self-confidence, you know. Now, I always say dream big, start small. Start small. and then take little steps, but scale fast. And as you're going, always have the end goal. Where do you want to be? You want to be like Dangote. You know, maybe one of his companies. You want that is so that's your end goal. So as you're moving, you're just looking at the end goal. I mean, when people there was a time I used the word, and it's almost like I I upset a lot of people because I said on my journey I was probably gender blind, you know. And they were like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I didn't even look at whether you're looking at me as a woman or, you know, I had an end goal. If I need to raise finance, I will do my analysis, my business plan. When it gets to the desk of the banking officer, I don't expect for them to look at, oh, this is a woman, and they're looking at the viability of what has been presented to them, right? You know, so what, I always also ask, what would you have done if you were not afraid? Okay. You need to believe in yourself. Take those small steps. Delight in those successes. But never forget that success, the one success is the beginning of another success. So never stop. We stop too early. That's the problem, but we can actually get there. If you understand what I'm saying. So never, never stop. You can do it. As long as you have that end picture, that end picture must not leave you. Are you going to go through challenges? Oh, yes. Did even the likes of Dangote go? They went through challenges. If it tells a story, you're still going through challenges, you know. And, at the time, I make cards, and I said to some people in the room, how many people have cards in their wallets? They raised up their hands. How many people have SIM cards on their phone? Because we make SIM cards, they raised up their hands. I said, very soon, in a few years' time, when I say how many people have ATM cards, whether Mastercard or Visa, they are not going to raise up their hand. So what does that mean? It means that I'm going to be disrupted very soon. So I told myself and my team, instead of other people coming to disrupt us, let's disrupt ourselves. So we formed another company, which is digital, it's fintech, and has all the CBN licenses for that. And the mandate to that company is that everything that we do here, disrupt it. So we make driver's license, make e-driver's license. So we do transport cards. Let people buy their cars, have a mobile app, and so on. So we make ATM cards. Have a digital card on your phone whereby you don't need to use that physical card. So we keep improving. Keep asking yourself, what are the alternatives? Don't say because you have succeeded, you stop. Because as I said, it's easier to get to the top, but it's more difficult to sustain. So you can do it, is what I'm telling you. If we all can be where we are today and we're not stopping, you definitely can do it. I hope that helps.
Just also, in addition to everything that has been said, also to be intentional about building structure. And I think that's what a lot of SMEs don't necessarily do here. So it's like, okay, one man business for as long as, but you know, look at what do you need to do to move to that next level, which is whether it's your business, detailed business plan, getting someone to, if you can, with your financial. There's a discipline that is required that moves you from that just an SME to the next level. So whether it is looking for, accountant, whatever it is, write it out and then start working towards bringing that to the next level. So that is important. That corporate governance is looking for even people that are experts, to bounce off on a regular basis, whether it is the discipline of having twice a month, whatever it is, looking for someone that I want to share my ideas with you. I'm not satisfied with the numbers that I'm seeing. What do I need to do differently? Someone that holds you accountable to your dreams. Put your hands up, please. Don't be afraid.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fisai Okwiton. I'm a supply chain professional in the FMCG space. Thank you to the wonderful ladies for coming here to speak to us. I think I just wanted to probably, I mean, my question goes to to
Yeah, most quickly one question.
Here, there's a mic there.
Okay, so my hi everyone. My name is Bama, and I'm the technical assistant to Dupe Olusola. Okay, so my question is actually to Dr. Modupe. She spoke about passion and how it's a driving force and it helps you get out of bed easily. We are in economic downtimes, let me say, and in Nigeria and generally around the world, people work for money. I mean, that's really why a lot of people go to work. So where do you draw the line? Because you speak to people and they're like, oh, passion, it doesn't do anything. Oh, you want to be an artist, look at you. My friend, will you go and, there's that. And I mean, I have passions. I have things that I, really, really want to do at the end of the day. So where do you draw that line and how can you encourage us to really focus on that passion still? And again, at what point is it okay to say, you know what, I really want to focus on this? Thank you. That's my question.
Okay, the first one, messed up, made mistakes. I was thinking about it, obviously. Um, Making mistakes, that's like, it's it's constant, like not every day, but constant. And I think that once you are not afraid to make mistakes, I think it makes a difference. And once you are open to learn, it also makes a difference. I think one of the things that I've learned and is important to me is that I actually always want to be surrounded with people more intelligent and smarter than I am. So if you're surrounded with people that are more intelligent and smarter, what you'll find is that you're constantly making mistakes because my advice, my recommendation won't necessarily be the best. But the fact that someone else can say, okay, have you thought about it this way? And I'm open to learn, it makes a difference. So there's so many instances. I remember like Folake, I took over at the onset of the pandemic and the hotel was at 70% occupancy. And it went in the month that I took over to 5% occupancy, meaning that literally everybody stepped out of the hotel. But we decided to stay open and we decided to manage and leave the doors open, despite the fact that we're losing 1.5 billion naira on a monthly basis. And we had to let go of 400 people. So for me, that was like huge. And there were so many failures within that whole experience. And one of the things, because I work in a unionized environment, we let go of 450 and there was a fight back. And I don't know if I drop this, if you can hear my voice. Oh, it's low at the back. It's okay. Okay. One of the very key things, the first day, all the employees at the hotel went on strike. And we had businesses, including British Airways, that was staying at, and they have a routine, right? That they must come, they have to rest for a certain number of hours before they fly back out. And everybody literally down tools, calls channels, to come in to record that they have carrying also happened about the same time. And so they were riding on the back of that we're not treating staff well. But I had to learn that, there's a way to make, which also had to include communication, which had to include engagement, understanding all the critical stakeholders and learning through it. I had never been exposed to that before. So there were failures, in terms of making the decisions. And but one of the key things was very quickly, we didn't have time to sit down and cry over the lessons or the failures. We just had to really keep moving. We had to sit at the table, the unions, we had to engage them. At some point I was walking from the lobby to the rest to everything within the, but when they were not actually answering, we literally got behind the counters to make we're talking to our guests and telling them, listen, people at the hotel, British Airways, different organizations, we had to spend time to be and engage, negotiate, explain to them that we're listening to them, but we had no choice in this scenario to let them go. But it took a lot, but we learned through, our colleagues as human beings, being empathic, to also show empathy and understanding that it was not a personal thing, but it was more that this was called for the business at that point in time. So there was a lot of learning in that experience. So I think the key thing is, will we face failure? Will we face challenges? I think we've said it, we will on a daily basis. But what we learn from it and how we grow from that is what I would say more important than actually the failure or the actual answer to the first one. The second one, I think it's first, how do I be myself? Fighting for. But I think there's an intentionality that you must take in approach. For me, one is I choose knowing as maybe not is it jollof rice. Not everybody will like you, and that's the reality. But once you decide that I will be true to myself and authentic to myself, then the people that don't like you and the people that will get to like you, they would see that you have actually been consistent. It's not that you have been a certain person because you are trying. You know, a lot of the times I find that sometimes people will say, don't do this too much, don't do social media this much, people are abusing you, people will do this and all that. And I learned that actually the people that care about me, my tribe, my circle, are actually the people that matter. And the people that are criticizing you is actually not really about me. It's just about they have to yap somebody or they have to say something about somebody. They just have to. And guess what? They'll forget tomorrow. So why am I going to change the essence of who I am for someone that is going to forget about me in the next hour or next day? Do you understand what I'm saying? So Folake sits down, she's going to yap me. See that Dupe, she was dancing with Wizkid. She was going down. Was she the only one? All of those things. Were there not people at that party? But what was going to happen? I'm going to move, she's going to move that gist to somebody. But when I was dancing, was I being true to myself? Or was I doing it for the camera or doing it for the awards? No. So if it gives me joy to do it in that, I will do it. I'll be real to myself. I'll be to myself. And for me, the most important. One mean that you don't do things that you will not regret. Do you understand? The starting place and starting point is I just want to be me, and I deserve to be happy. It's a journey. I deserve to learn through the process, but I deserve to be happy. You will make those decisions with you in place. It doesn't mean, I remember when I was much younger, I would fly on a private jet, and people would call me, why must you post? Why must you post on private jet? Are you the first one? And I'm like, actually, how did it affect you? So you must get to that point. If somebody else starts to maybe try to dance, go to the floor, and if it's not you, it's going to look forced. Do you understand? But if it is you and if it is who you are and what you are, and also understand that in life, we're on a path of self discovery. So you today is not you tomorrow, but allow yourself process of I want to learn. I always laugh. In fact, I have a friend who, when I was looking for my wedding dress, they were like, why must it be strapless? Why must it be this? And she got married a few years after me. Wedding dress. But the reality is that sometimes once you set yourself free, in the process, you set other people free. So even though they're criticizing you, I also look at it that it's maybe not from a bad place. So another thing I've learned to cut people slack. And in cutting people slack, it actually makes a difference for me. If somebody shouts at me, if somebody tells me, oh, she did this, she did that, yeah, I get a thick skin because I'm like, it's actually not about me. The person may be dealing with some insecurities that makes it comfortable for them that unless they yap the next person, they don't necessarily feel so good about themselves. So once you understand that actually it's not about me, if I come into this person, one of the things that I love the most here today is the fact that we've all been able to own our job. You don't often hear a woman say that I pioneered this because we're thinking, what are people going to say? Are they going to think I'm showing off or I'm arrogant or own it? Because nobody else did it. You did it. So if you don't say it, if you don't own it, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And I think that is one of the critical things. So when we even talk about legacy, and I think the legacy is in being authentic, in showing us that you don't have to one certain way to succeed. You don't have to, unfortunately, straight and bend this. It doesn't actually matter because it is more about the essence of who you are and the happiness that you and your best life. Because guess what? I'm sure if you sit down here, the people that were abusing me in secondary school or the people that years ago, you have to just keep moving because oftentimes even you don't remember. That's why also when people talk. One of my mates that was talking about mental health. Whilst we are mental health, does it exists? The truth is that every day we are all dealing with mental health challenges because oftentimes, but you have to self to start of it. Can you guys hear me? Into a place of sadness. You can't even remember. You're like, what happened? Why do you feel every single find a way to connect with friends and family that give you strength, that tell you it is okay and you can do it.
Passion. Okay, I think maybe. I think I'm slightly different because I'm a medic. All right. So I grew up. Medicine is passion. There is nothing. Although yes, I'm now in the entrepreneurial space, but going into medicine, honestly, fundamentally, is from a place of because a number of hours you have to work and the way that you have to give yourself or give off yourself, sometimes not even just to your patients but to their family, and particularly obviously in the space of oncology. So the hours that you need to spend sometimes when you're technically closed. I mean, I know that when you're an entrepreneur, you can't close, but even in medicine, all the way is passion. I also feel, and I may be wrong, that I think if you do what you're doing to the best of your ability, striving for excellence, I know it sounds cheesy. It's not about the money. The money will always come. I will tell you for sure, I have earned much more money than I ever thought I would ever see in my life. Never really thought about money. And even when I was working, like, when you get the next promotion and the next salary, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I never thought about the salary. When I was going for those jobs, sitting, in fact, I went to one interview where everybody, the other candidate was a male candidate in an academic institution. And I thought to myself, I have to get this job. I'm a woman, I'm from Nigeria. They're all Englishmen that went to public school and blah, blah. I must get this job. And I remember my father saying, you've just gone to England. You need to do all this other, maybe go to a district general hospital. He was just trying to protect me, I went straight for that teaching hospital job. Nobody ever does that, right? But I thought, well, why not? And I remember in the interview, and it was at St. Bartholomew's Hospital, which is one of the oldest, most prestigious medical schools, walking in. And, in medicine, we don't even do all this boardroom, whatever. But because they were like that, really old school, walked in and there was this large boardroom and about 10 men with their half-rimmed glasses. You could see that. And each one said, oh, it was really nice to meet you the other day when you came to come and find out about the job and do your due diligence. Next person, next person, next person. Everybody. So got to this man, he said, excuse me, Dr. Elebute, how come I haven't met you? Because, obviously I'd gone to see anybody else and I was like, you were on holiday. And I think it was at that point they gave me the job. Do you understand? It wasn't just, sometimes, because at the end of the day, we're probably all equally qualified, but it was just the amount of work and effort that I had made to be there and showing how much I wanted the job. So I think passion, and I'm not saying it in a whatever, but it's not about, money cannot be your main driver. Because otherwise you'll put a ceiling to even what you're trying to achieve. Money is not the driver here, right? It's about what you want to target, what you want to be. Like the lady who said she's targeting Dangote, I am like, I'm beyond. Do you understand? And that is it. And when you get to those places in your life, I promise you, the money that will follow you, you yourself, you will be shocked. True. That's what I really believe, okay? I don't think you can put a ceiling. I think, but because you can't put a ceiling on your passion. If your passion gets you out of bed and you're doing it every day. And the other thing I will say as a leader, you have to be able to pull along the people that you work with or work with you and also impacting your vision on them. But also making them understand that you can do every task that you're asking them to do. I think, like listening to Kofo saying that she's in the factory, listening to Dupe saying that I'm at the table in the front desk and so on. When you realize that actually you can put in those hours, you can do things, I'm telling you, your employees will do their best. Now, just listening to, I just want to also just share somebody I met not too long ago. When you're thinking about disrupting or doing, and because you're all young, I mean, anything is something you can do or try and do. And I think that's what she was trying to say. I went to this talk and there was a lady there, and in the end, she made envelopes. Okay? I mean, I was sitting there thinking, envelopes. How did you even think that envelopes was going to be a thing? Because you might all be sitting here going, well, unless I do fintech at the highest level, just something to throw out there. Fintech may not be your passion. Your passion may be making Ankara tablecloths or something, but you're going to do it in a, do you see what I'm trying to say? But this lady, someone was listening to her envelopes. So she was talking exactly what Kofo is saying, exactly what both of you are saying. And she was like, she's very educated either. Oh, she was following the people who are abroad. That's what she said, in the abroad, that she will call them and say, okay, now we have sent these envelopes, but somebody else is now making, because when you become successful at something, everybody will start doing it. Everybody. So that thing is the message you are trying to get across. So you have to keep thinking, keep changing. So someone said to them, oh, now you make envelopes that have windows. And of course, what happened? Nigeria went cashless. They needed to send cards to customers. She became the first person making envelopes with windows. So a few years later, of course, now everybody is making envelopes with windows because now they realize there's a market. She's calling her people. They now said, oh, tamper-proof envelopes. I'm like, tamper-proof. In elections, you have to have envelopes that once somebody's opened it or tried to open it, it shows. I think they use a pen or something to check. So she started making tamper-proof envelopes. Guess what we've just been through? Every single election box, every single envelope has to be tamper-proof. She's now making envelopes across from here to Burkina Faso is where she's supplying envelopes. So, it's not always whatever it is, but it's doing it to that level. And for her, making sure that she continued to try and make it better and better. I think that's what it is. So that's where the passion, I think, also comes from. And it's what will keep you going. Thank you.
Also, I was just going to say that, don't believe that you have reached your destination. And I think that's really important, that it's a journey. So there are a lot of things that you may be doing it now. It's not necessarily where you want to be, but there's stuff that you must learn there. And I think Folake talked about it when she said all her jobs was preparing her for so that's important, that wherever you are, it may not necessarily be your perfect job, your perfect business. It doesn't matter. But, approach it with diligence and approach it with excellence so that you find that when you get to where you're actually going or meant to be, you'd remember that actually, because I did that thing well, I understand things better. So don't take for granted any opportunity, regardless of what it is. Whether you are a front desk person, receptionist, don't take any of it for granted. Just do it well and learn what you're supposed to. And it all comes together. And I think that's very important. Thank you.
The first is funding. Right. Okay. When no, first of all, you have to do your plan. Okay. And I don't know. It could also be the fact that I had a banking background. And when I was in banking, I was analyzing credits. So people that want to go into business, I analyze, or people that need loans, I analyze their financials. So I kind of knew what was needed, But it's not rocket science. You have an idea, okay? You look at a 5-year projection, all right? You make sure you make sure you look at every risk. What could go wrong? All right, because it's one thing to have the idea, but you have to also look at it critically. What could go wrong? What are the risks? What are the threats? Okay. What is this scenario? If this happens, what happens? If this happens, what happens? And so on and so forth. If you're able to take care of all those loopholes and leakages, all right, and you present that that to a bank, it will probably go places, okay? But the other thing is, what do you want to raise? Do you want to raise debt or do you want to raise equity? All right. And, for me, I wanted to do a mix. Now, to bring in investors, because I brought in investors, private investors. They were people that already believed in me. And basically, that's why I say whatever you're doing or wherever you find yourself, do it well. Because you don't know who is watching. So that by the time you have an idea and you take it to them, easily. Most of my private investors, I didn't even have to do, I went with all my PowerPoint presentation, just stop. Just ask a few questions. I said, okay, look, I'm in, you know. The bank were basically running after me, take more money, take more money. But maybe because of the banking background, I didn't want to be too highly leveraged. So I knew what proportion of debt and equity that I wanted. So I would say find a very good financial advisor. If you have an idea, if you have someone that does your business plan for you, do it. And then take it to wherever. Right now, in my days, there weren't too many. It was very difficult raising money from the bank. But now there are so many intervention funds. There are a lot of desk in banks that focuses on women businesses. So I feel it's a lot easier now. There are private equity, there are venture capitalists trying to, any single business, they want to get into it. So I think there's a lot of fun. There are a lot of funds right now that are ready, but it's how you present your paper that matters. So get an expert to do it, And on the people alignment, it's very, very key, because I always say that an idea goes from the first step is, you have the idea. The next step is you draw up your strategy, your business plan. Then the next step is you align people, and then after you execute. I remember when we were certified by Visa against all odds, we were told that, then it was all 419, so it was not possible to have a company in Nigeria to be certified by Visa or certified by Mastercard. That certification means that Mastercard and Visa International is giving you permission to produce their cards. And they are said to me it's going to take 2 years because there's a lot of rules that you have to go by, from physical to logical to documentation and so on and so forth. Even where you have to be located, you have to be certain minutes or kilometers away from a police station, from a fire station, and so on. So there were all those rules. And Nigerians, our work ethics, we're not very used to rules. And I remember when we got our visa certification in 6 months instead of 2 years. And we got a lot of people congratulating from all over the world, saying, wow, 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 the first in sub-Saharan Africa and so on. And after glowing in all of that, the next day I went to the office and I asked for because security is very important. Security man was Bassi at the time. Oh, where is Bassi? Because you're meant to be at your post. They said Bassi has gone out to eat. To eat? So, and when you get your certification, you're audited. We go through about probably 20 audits in a year. So you're audited every time. A visa auditor may come and say, look, I want to know how Stanbic IBTC Visa card, blah, 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 was made on the 31st of October, 2020, for instance. And the camera has to, get it. You have to look at it. They have to make sure that you followed all the quality processes and so on and so forth. Security-wise as well, as you're going in, they check everything. And I thought, wow, he's gone out, So the next night I thought, okay, we need to have a canteen. And that was how our canteen started. Nobody goes out, everybody eats in the canteen. We just make sure the canteen is as 5 stars you can deal with, So, and then aligning people is also sharing the success with them. When people come to the plant, they always say that the people are very proud of what they're doing, So when there is success, share it with them, I remember when we got some kind of award, African leadership, somewhere in Africa, So I came back and I basically told all of them that, look, this is what we're doing, So when you keep communicating with them and letting them know that what they're doing is, getting recognition, they feel a part of it. And there's that ownership. And you're aligning them with, and your vision. As your vision is changing, you're sharing it with them as well. So as a leader, don't stop communicating with them because at the end of the day, one day you're going to leave the business, and it's going to be them running it. So that's basically people alignment never stops. And it's not easy, but it never stops. Thank you.
So much. I'd like to thank every one of you for such an incredible panel. I'd like to thank you all for attending as well. And can we give a round of applause to our panelists, to yourselves, and to the Future Leaders Network for putting all of this together? There'll be a session after where we can network, ask more questions, get some food, stuff like that. But thank you all for coming. I'll hand over the mic to Damien to close the session out.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I want to just start by thanking my beautiful panel guests, my speakers, and I'm just grateful that you were able to come today and honor this invite today. So that's first and foremost, I just need to give you a round of applause. So can everyone just give each and every one of you a round of applause? I can speak on, I think, behalf of everybody that this session was insightful. It was full of wise words, wisdom, words that you wouldn't be able to get unless you're in this space. So I'm just grateful and thankful to each and every one of you. And without further ado, I'd like to give a big shout out to my team, to my colleagues, my backbone of this, and I'll call them up. They're going to be embarrassed, but I'm going to call them up. Bolaji, Tobe, Ohai, Ti. Please, can you come up, Tobe Iruku? So I just want to give each and every one of them this shout. And Somto virtually is joining us as well. So just want to thank you. Without which none of this would have been possible, honestly. So I just want to thank everyone for that. Now we're going to break out into lunch now and networking as well. So exciting. So thank you guys. All right. Bye-bye. Yes, and I would love to thank Nadine. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Nadine, the most amazing moderator there is. How can I forget? But honestly, thank you for honoring this invitation as well. You really held the panel and you set the stage and set the tone today. So thank you.